So excited to have you here. Welcome everyone to the 2024 American Cancer Society National HPV Vaccination Roundtable National Meeting. This week you will be joining us for a celebration of 10 years. That sounds great, doesn't it? Get out your party hats and prepare to be inspired by the work that has been accomplished over the last 10 years in partnership with all of you, and gain knowledge on how we can continue to innovate together to prevent HPV-related cancers. I'm Tamika Felder. I'm a cervical cancer survivor. I'm the founder of Cervivor, Cervivor, and I'm also one of the newly appointed co-chairs of this roundtable with the wonderful Dr. Michelle Fisketh. I am so happy to be here celebrating with each and every one of you. A few housekeeping items to get us started. Throughout the session today, please post any comments, reactions, or needs in the chat. We want to hear from you. This is interactive and your voice matters. This is a celebration for us, but it's also a celebration for each and every one of you. Any questions that you have for the speakers, please post in the Q&A box. The presentations and recording of today's session will be shared, so don't worry about that. Please subscribe to our newsletter via the website and our socials for more information on new resources, videos, and more. And before we dive into today's session on HPV vaccination as cancer prevention, and I'm going to say that one more time, HPV vaccination is cancer prevention. We want to thank everyone for joining us and everyone that has helped us build this work over the last 10 years. The celebration truly is for all of us. So today, we have a great session planned for you today. The welcome celebration, we have videos, we've got an amazing panel discussion that includes cancer survivors. So excited for you to hear that. We have someone here to talk about cancers associated with HPV from the CDC. And as you heard from the music when we started, this truly is a party. So we'll have a wrap up and an after party. So don't miss any of it, because HPV vaccination is cancer prevention, and it is truly something to celebrate. When I think of that, I get so filled with joy, and it just makes me so happy. And most all, it doesn't end today. This is a week-long celebration, but truly, this is something that we have all been committed to for some time. So it does not end today. And share on our social media channels, and do not forget to sign up on the newsletter. And we have an amazing video and interview. Dr. LJ Tan is here today.
Oh, can y'all see me? Hello.
Hi.
I am delighted to be here. We were supposed to have recorded this without, but we're going to do this live, Tamika. I'm so excited.
Live is always great. And I think I actually skipped over the 10-year video. Someone will tell me in the chat. Maybe we can post it after this. But I'm excited to have you up, and let's do this. So LJ, you are an original steering committee member. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you're passionate about, and how you feel about 10 years of doing this
Wow.
work in this capacity.
Well, Tamika, I met you as part of the roundtable,
Yes,
so I'm so
yes.
excited. And then congratulations on taking
Thank
a
you.
co-lead or co-chair onto
Thank
this.
you.
That's awesome. I think this is just, you're going to
Thank
take it
you.
even further. I remember joining this when Noel Brewer was the chair, and we were
Mhm.
like sitting in a little room at ACS and trying to figure
Yes.
out where to go with this. Yeah. So right now, I am back as I was back 10 years ago. I'm the chief policy and partnerships officer at immunize.org. We are a national nonprofit that really focuses on trying to improve immunization coverage rates per ACIP recommendations. And of course, I'm also the co-chair of a national organization called the National Adult and Influenza Immunization Summit. And of course, HPV is as we all know, an adult vaccine as well. And so a lot of my work as part of this current work is around HPV as well. But I think I want to kind of just talk a little bit, if I can, to make about how HPV has been, one of those passionate things for me, because I think I remember when HPV started, because I was deeply involved in it. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm Asian, so I can say this. But I'm a lot older than I look, and so I remember when the vaccine was coming into the market. I was involved actually with a lot of the vaccine launch communications back then, going back and forth as to what's the best way to communicate about HPV vaccination. It was brand new, and at that time I was actually on the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, as a liaison member. So they were also beginning to, we were beginning to make recommendations about how this vaccine would be used. And so I got to see the data that was coming out, ahead of this vaccine. And I was totally impressed with the vaccination data, that what this vaccine could do. And I recognized with many others at that time that this was going to be a game changer if we did it right, right? And so I think that's our goal, is to continue to do it right, right? And so while my interest started with the adolescent immunization efforts back then, 15 years ago, and then obviously with the roundtable 10 years ago, and I still am really interested in the adolescent effort. I am now trying to make sure that we don't forget the young adults. Remember, those through 26, right? We want to get them as well. And then indeed, even all the adults through 45, because there's a shared clinical decision making recommendation for them. So that's where I'm really trying to kind of remind people. Let's not forget the young adults. Let's not forget the adults who can still benefit from HPV vaccination. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to kind of dial back to what you said, this work has been going on for a long time. There's some people who may be newly diagnosed, or maybe they're transferring from another disease site, and they may look at this and say, well, there's so much heavy lifting that still needs to happen, but there is a lot of groundwork that has been laid, and it may seem like it's um, taking a longer time, but in my 20 plus years of being in this space, I have seen the changes. Do we need more changes? Yes, we do. But what is that thing that truly keeps you fueled in doing this work and moving forward? What's that one thing?
You, Tamika.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm not, and I say that with no tongue in cheek here. I totally mean it. I mean, your story and the stories of people who have survived, and then also the story of people who have lost. I mean, this vaccine saves lives and it prevents so much suffering. And the fact, like I said earlier, it's an impressive vaccine. And so until we maximize its protection, we cannot stop. I mean, the fact that we continue, as you've suggested, to have new infections, and that we have what I would like to unfortunately say still unimpressive vaccination coverage rates for HPV vaccination is what continues to drive me on, because we can stop this, and it's on us, right? It's on us to keep advocating for HPV vaccination. It's on me, it's on you, it's on the roundtable to keep our eye on this prize. We can reduce this and we can stop it.
And so two things, this is the 10-year celebration. And again, we've been there since the beginning. It for me as a patient advocate, it is surreal to say that I've been there since the
Mm.
inception of this, and it feels good. And it also challenges and fuels me to do even more. Maybe I shouldn't tell the people behind scenes that, you know, to help push this forward, right? Because I know we need patient voices to keep pushing this forward. But there are hurdles. What do you see as the biggest hurdle that we've had to overcome? Uh,
Mhm.
and is it still something that we're going to have to overcome in the future? But also, what's that thing that you're like, 10 years we did this, let's celebrate it?
Well, I think celebration, Tamika, is always good. But I think part of the celebration is to not become complacent, right? So
Yes. Yes.
exactly, right. To recognize that, as I've said earlier, and as you've suggested, there's still work ahead of us. And so I think the biggest hurdle that we have kind of overcome is initially just recognizing the impact of the disease. And then, as you started out all by us saying, is recognizing that this vaccine, HPV vaccination, is a cancer prevention effort. To
Mhm.
take it away from all the hums and the ha's about what else this could be, but to focus on the fact that we're preventing, first and foremost, cervical cancer, and then obviously all the other HPV associated cancers that this vaccine will prevent, right? I think that's a hurdle that we've begun to overcome, but we cannot become complacent because with every new generation, we got to keep educating. And so I think that's been the hurdle. But I think that leads us to that second part of your question, Tamika, which is this idea of the biggest achievement of the roundtable. And the roundtable has done so much. I mean, over 80 plus resources are on the website, a lot of campaigns, a lot of initiative. But I'm going to take it one step above that. And I'm going to tell you what the roundtable has done immensely well. And that is to bring all of us together through its
That's it for me.
yeah, through its convening. There you go, Tamika, right? Bringing us together under leadership such as people in the past and people like yourself moving forward, right? To talk about what's next, to keep our complacency low, and to keep on going forward with collaboration in a transparent, holistic fashion to get the vaccination coverage rates up to where they should be. That ability of the roundtable to convene and collaborate and communicate among all of us. Yay, HPV roundtable, right? No, absolutely. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, all those initiatives are great. Don't get me wrong, but that big part, don't lose that focus.
I think too, a lot of times people get siloed when they think about the work they're doing, right? Because
Yeah.
whether you're a large organization, small, or just an individual or a couple of committed people, it's a lot of work. And you when you join a coalition and you convene together with others, you're thinking, what more can I do? How much more work can I take on? And it's always amazing to see people volunteer to be a part of this and come together and to do more. And so that is a big thing. I love looking and seeing our membership grow, but I also
Yeah.
love seeing active membership. That's something that you're going to hear often from me. I said it when I was just on the steering committee, but I'm definitely going to say it, as a co-chair. Active membership is the key to us. It's amazing to have all of these organizations listed, but we need those people active. And the Roundtable has done a really great job of keeping membership active. And we want membership to communicate to us and tell us what you need going forward and driving through. And I love that the title of this isn't just to celebrate, because we could easily just celebrate, but it's an innovate. And
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
innovation doesn't stop. Let's keep
Absolutely.
doing it.
And
So
and you've got such a great team there to innovate. How
yes,
cool is that,
the,
right?
the team is amazing. Let's
Hmm.
kudos to the team. I want to ask you too, if you could charge everyone watching this, whether it's live here or hello to the people who are watching the replay of this, what's that one call to action? What would it be?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to again take this one. We want to celebrate HPV vaccination, the successes we've had, and recognizing the work we still have in front of us. But I think as a part of this, I want everyone to think about the fact that right now in this country, we have vaccine confidence challenges. And it extends to all vaccines and it spills over into HPV vaccination. So it's on all of us to not just talk about the importance of HPV vaccination, but the importance of vaccination in general. We have to have, science, evidence-based faith and trust in the fact that we've got a vaccination system in the US that's the safest in the world. And we need to promote that to all the people we talk to. We should be saying vaccination is extremely safe. Vaccination saves lives. All the recommended vaccines saves lives, saves morbidity, makes people reduces suffering, and HPV vaccination prevents cancer. That's how we kind of have to
Absolutely.
go. We got to raise the whole enterprise because in doing so, we raise ours as well. So I think that's something I want us to all kind of keep an eye on is this idea that we do have challenges in general with vaccination hesitancy, and we don't want it spilling over into HPV vaccines.
Well, thank you for that. I want to do a quick lightning round before we're out of time, because I think it's important to humanize the people who are doing this work. So many times I wonder, how do you all do it all? And so I want to be a little nosy and learn some personal things about you. So do you have a favorite book or podcast?
So I tend to listen to Sam Harris a lot, and then I have a book that I've read a long time ago that I continue to go back to. It's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mhm.
So I think you can kind of see a lot of where my general directions is, this idea of being present in the moment, engaging with people around you right now, not letting fears to get in the way. Fear is false expectation appearing real, FEAR. So yeah, so those are my favorite podcast and book.
And so, favorite person to have lunch with and why, and what would you be eating?
Right now, Kamala Harris, because I've got so many. I want to keep encouraging her on, and what would I be eating? I shouldn't be, but it would be a steak.
Every once in a while, it's okay. And
Yes.
lastly, your leisure activity. What keeps you sane? What's the restorative health thing for you?
Oh, meditation.
I love it. I'm working on that.
Yeah. You can never, if you can never, people tell me, LJ, how do you meditate? It takes a long time. I said, no, just take 5 minutes. That's all you need. Just 5 minutes. Be peaceful. Feel your breath. It really settles you down.
Well, thank you, Dr. LJ Tan, not only for what you're doing right now and today, but thank you for what you did in the past, but thank you for the future.
Well,
Thank you
Tamika, thanks
so
to
very
you. I
much.
mean, it's again, as I say, you're an example why we keep going. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Now we'll have our 10-year celebration video.
Yay.
I look around the room, when I look on the screen for virtual activities and events, I see people who share the same goal, a world free of HPV cancers. And that's meaningful because when we have these data points that we share and these goals that we put in place, those represent people. They represent us, they represent our neighbors, our family members, our loved ones. And I'm very proud to work with such a committed and passionate group sharing this common goal of a world free of HPV cancers.
I am proud to be part of the HPV Vaccination Roundtable because of the people. The people who are from the American Cancer Society, who are on the steering committee, my colleagues, and the member organizations across the board have passion and purpose. They are here because in their heart they believe this is where they want to devote their time and effort. And I am proud and honored to be part of that group.
We're building a generation of children who will no longer be impacted by this brutal disease.
I'm so proud to be a part of this roundtable because I can. I didn't die of cervical cancer. I'm still here to share my story, and I'm also here to share the stories of those who sadly succumbed to it. So I'm proud to be able to make my survivorship count, to be that real life data, to share the real life of what cervical cancer does, of what HPV cancers can do. And I'm proud to be a part of these roundtables.
I think the HPV Roundtable has this magic formula. So we started with this incredibly effective HPV vaccine, and then we really focus on making sure we take the best and evidence-based practices and then expand those and roll them out everywhere and make sure everyone's hearing about them because we have this really big group of dedicated, highly passionate members and their organizations that can help do that.
The tools to eliminate cervical cancer as a public health problem within the next 2 decades if we put our time, energy, resources, and passion behind it. And I hope we can get it done.
I don't know about you all, but I just get chills watching that video and the possibilities and knowing that we're all in this together. And yes, we are stronger together. Thank you all so much for that amazing video. And I love just seeing just some of the people that are involved in this and the meetings and us convening all over the years. So great. I have the honor of moderating our HPV-related cancer survivors panel. And I love doing so many things within this work, but this is probably what is most meaningful to me, hearing from those who've experienced HPV-related cancer directly. And I always want to thank those who are utilizing survivor voices, because I do believe that this work cannot be done without hearing from patients and survivors and caregivers. So I want to thank the roundtable for making sure that those voices are included. The panel today is Mike West, Lindsay Gillette-Lee, and Susie Sanchez. You can click on the link in the chat to read their full bios, but I will give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. I am just so very excited to have you all here and to learn more about you. And so I'm going to ask all of our panelists today to briefly tell us about your cancer journey and, really how it's impacted you and your family. We'll talk about caregivers in a little bit, but just give us, if you can, the highlight version of your story. Susie, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is really special, and I'll hold back tears because everything you guys have said is so heartfelt. I'm 3 years in remission from anal cancer. I'd like to step back 10 years ago. Actually 13 years ago, I was an NFL cheerleader for the Oakland Raiders. I had international headline news that year. I was a grandmother on the sideline for the NFL. And my point in saying that is the platform of my life then helped me to where I am now to share with you guys the importance of this vaccine. And like LJ said, it prevents cancer in the body. Like, this is absolutely amazing. So I'm hoping with my survival of anal cancer and my past platform of being a professional cheerleader, I can make both those situations merge and help be a huge voice like you guys all are in making a difference in the world. So
I
3
want to
years
stop
ago,
you really quick and say one thing.
yeah.
You're already making a huge difference and you'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So,
And
yeah, tell us how it impacted you.
it impacted. I was diagnosed with anal cancer 3 years ago, and I feel I'm a very healthy person. And as we all know, cancer doesn't discriminate, and your entire world stops. We all know that as cancer survivors. And to me, all I knew was Farrah Fawcett didn't make it from this disease, so I didn't think I was going to live. And in anal cancer environment, there's not many of us, right? We're a small niche group. Luckily, I found Marsha Cross on the internet and Lillian, and they were.
Lillian is in the chat saying, "Go Susie."
Hi, honey.
Love Lillian.
Yes, with the HPV Cancer Alliance. And those two women with some other ladies and men, they saved my life. They told me it's going to be barbaric and you're going to have 6 weeks of hell plus many additional weeks, and we're going to get you to the other side. And they did just that, and my caregivers did as well. But I knew right away, wow, there was a vaccine out for this. Obviously, I was older at the time. I never had the vaccine, but I knew I had to use my voice and make sure our future generations have this vaccine. In my opinion, it should be a mandated vaccine. It's the only vaccine in the world that prevents cancer, cervical, anal, and throat in the body. And it's, I'll stop at nothing. As I tell Lily and Marsha, I'll stop at nothing to make sure that someday we can have this as a mandated vaccine and we can eradicate the HPV virus related cancers from existence.
I love that. And I love that you found community, because we know that community is really important. So we'll come back to you, but Mike, tell us about yourself, how cancer has impacted you and what you want others to know.
Sure. So I thought of myself as a healthy person, never smoked, working out, trying to stay in shape and eat healthy. And then one morning I was shaving and felt a little tiny lump on the left side of my throat. I had every reason not to go to the doctor because I felt great and generally don't like going to the doctor. But thank God I'm a hypochondriac, and I knew that that was my lymph nodes and I probably should get that checked out. And within 2 weeks, I ended up with a stage 4 diagnosis of squamous cell cancer to the throat due to HPV type 16 with lymph node involvement, and primary source unknown. They couldn't pinpoint the original tumor, but they knew it was up here. And so I ended up with a broad blast of high intensity radiation for 35 sessions over 7 weeks. At the same time, I received very large doses of cisplatin chemotherapy, and the side effects were just cumulative and devastating. Honestly, in addition to the nausea and all the terrible feelings that go with chemotherapy, lost my taste, developed dry mouth due to salivary glands, pretty much being obliterated. And so many sores came up, through my throat, into my tongue and my mouth, that I ended up being on a peg tube. And despite, receiving all of my nutrients through that tube for a while, I lost 70 pounds on that journey.
Wow.
And just completely decimated my body. Wound up in the hospital for a bit after that, and then waited the 90 days for the radiation to get out of my body. And thank God, heard that beautiful news that, it was gone. And it'll be 7 years in December. And
Wow.
so the beautiful part of that journey is it was absolute hell. It was terrible. But I'm here today, stronger, healthier, happier than I've ever been. But, the reason that I really got into this was because when I was sitting in that chair and they said, you have HPV related cancer, I thought something was wrong with me genetically because I thought HPV only caused cervical cancer. I had no idea that it could impact men. I didn't know there was a vaccine also for little boys, in addition to girls. And so I figured there was probably a lot of people like me who didn't know really what HPV was. And so my wife actually works for American Cancer Society. And so through her contacts, I spoke at a Relay for Life and just, took it from there, speaking in schools and with different organizations, anywhere that I can, even in a line at supermarket or at a playground, just sharing the story and trying to normalize HPV, let people know how common it is. And while sharing the story of how devastating that it can be, hopefully when parents will then make the connection through me that I don't want that to ever happen to my child. And I really think that's the key, is just the knowledge that this HPV, it sounds general, it sounds generic, but it can take your child's life, it can take your life, or it can brutally change it forever. So just getting the news out there that there's something you can do about it. So hopefully you never have to be in that situation.
Wow, Mike. I mean, you and Susie have already moved me. Talk about feeling emotional. One, we need more men telling their story. So thank you so much for telling your story. And you have the right mindset. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of you, and thank you for joining in this work that we're all doing to eliminate HPV related cancers. And we'll come back to you as well. Lindsay, I know your story. But tell us a little bit about your survivor story.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I always say that my story starts with blood. I had prior pap smears with no problems, no anything. So of course, when I started bleeding, it was an immediate concern for me. And I immediately went to the hospital because the irregular bleeding was happening very regularly, and it started in June of 2022. And for me, it took 5 doctors for me to finally get a diagnosis in November of cervical cancer. And I was completely blown away because I had never had anything show up before this. And by the time I was diagnosed, my tumor had grew to 9.8 centimeters. It was covering my entire cervix. The bleeding was so bad that I ended up having to stay a total amount of 10 days in the hospital. I had to have emergency radiation in the hospital. I had a total of 45 external radiation, 6 rounds of chemo, and 5 rounds of brachytherapy. And as of April 2023, I was declared NED. So it's still very fresh for me. But it definitely was life-changing. I never knew that this would be my path, but I am grateful for the chance to be able to tell everybody about it. I had very little experience about HPV or learning about it. I didn't know anything about the vaccine. So now this is my walk, and I'm proud to tell my story any and every chance I get. So thank you for having me.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much. I want to read a comment in the chat. And by the way, I am loving the chat. Those of you know I love an active chat. I love when everyone is involved in the conversation. Tira Wade, who's a survivor ambassador, a cervical cancer survivor, she says, normalizing what HPV is, the change we need. Eliminating HPV-related cancers is within our reach. And so with that, I want to ask each and every one of you, Lindsay, you touched on it just a little bit before you ended just now. When talking with friends and family about HPV vaccination, what do you say? And so, Susie, I'm going to come back to you.
Well, the first thing I said, and I always say on any interview I do, all I had was a booty itch. Like Michael said, there's no real symptom. You know, I've never had HPV. I still declare I never had HPV. I never had a bad pap smear. I didn't know you could get it in the anal region. I didn't know you can get it in your throat. I was uneducated about HPV. I never had a bad pap smear. So, so many people looked to me immediately and said, "You're walking health. So if you have something, dear God, what do I have?" And in our world with HPV anal cancer, many of us are misdiagnosed. I was misdiagnosed with a fissure, a small cut. A lot of my survivors were misdiagnosed with hemorrhoids. So I can't tell you how many people, once I started sharing my story, were like, "Susie, I have a hemorrhoid and it's never gone away and it itches and it bleeds." And I tell them, go see your, proctologist or someone to make sure that isn't HPV related cancer. So I just tell everybody always, like Michael said, kind of be a hypochondriac. I am. Know your body, know your symptoms. When something's not right, seek help. And when the doctors give you a prescription cream that didn't work, you got to go back and be your own voice. And I was stage 2. I easily could have, gone into more lymph node exposure. The treatment doesn't change from stage 2 or stage 4. We're still treated with the barbaric treatment that we had to go through. But I feel like I've really made a voice for folks to listen to themselves, listen to their bodies. But I tell every single person I come in contact with, especially that have kids or grandkids, please vaccinate your youth. Please. It's so important to put that vaccine in their arms now. So later in life, I was 48 when I was diagnosed, that they won't have to come across this. We can eradicate this disease, in my opinion. Really.
Thank you. Thank you, Susie. Yes, we can. Mike. And you're muted, or I can't hear you. Nope, you weren't muted. There you go.
Hear me now? Okay. Okay. I think, again, for me, it's just normalizing it, letting people know how common it is. Unless the stats have changed, I think it was 4 out of 5 people will come into contact with the HPV virus at some time in their life. That's a staggering statistic. And, for me, again, I didn't know what HPV was, and I certainly didn't know that it was something that most people that you come into contact with have had. They either have had it and their body got rid of it. They haven't had it yet, but they will, or will come into contact with it, or they're like us, where you had it and unfortunately it turned into something like cancer. So I think it's really letting parents know that the odds are staggering that you and your loved ones are going to come into contact with the HPV virus. And so if you know that it's a virtual certainty, as a parent, of 2 kids, I mean, if I know that's going to happen, why in the world would I not vaccinate them? I mean, I protect them in every other aspect of their life. Why would I carve that one particular danger out? And so I think really when parents hear the story of what we have gone through and what so many of our brothers and sisters have gone through who are not here to tell their story, and you get a parent to envision that you make a decision for them at a young age, and then fast forward 10 to 20 years when that virus can stay dormant in their body before it turns into cancer, and now they're married, they're middle-aged, they have kids of their own. I just could not imagine a parent being in that situation where the child, who's now a grown-up, knows that they could have been protected from going through that hell had you simply vaccinated them. And so one of the reasons I share that story is because I really want parents to know that that's the gamble you're taking. And if you don't have the vaccine, you're literally flipping a coin as to whether or not your child's body is going to, get rid of the HPV on its own, or whether it's going to turn into something devastating like cancer. And so to me, if you give that visualization to a parent, I think it's very, very difficult for a parent to walk away from that and just take a chance.
Yes, and Lori Wallace actually wrote something similar before we came to you. And she's a cervical cancer survivor, a survivor ambassador, and she says the treatments to keep us here are absolutely horrible. I feel obligated to plead with parents to vaccinate. It's not worth the gamble. We also had a question from Michelle Anderson. How often should you be tested for HPV? And we put that link in the chat, Michelle. And so you'll see if you, there's a link to risk prevention for HPV. I love that Brianna says, as someone new to public health, cancer prevention and control, hearing your stories and the energy in this group are so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Thank you, Brianna. It's really, truly, truly important. So I want to also, Lindsay, did you want to, I know you mentioned it briefly, but did you want to add anything on to that?
Yes, actually, as the parent, the first time I ever heard about the HPV vaccination, my daughter was 11 years old. And for me, it's about changing the narrative of the conversation because it was grouped in with the rest of the immunizations. Her doctor did not tell me it was prevention. What she said was it's an optional vaccine that she could get for when she's sexually active. When you bring that to a parent the way she brought it to me, it did not sound like something that she needed at that time and that I should be making that decision for her because it was not brought to me as prevention. So when I tell my friends and, you know, even my doctor now, I have 4 girls. So when I took my 4 girls to get their HPV prevention shot, it made a very big difference because the nurse actually told them what it was for, while she was giving them the vaccination. And I think that's very important as well as providers, for providers to know not to just make it an optional thing and tell them that it's actually something that's preventative for them.
Yes, and you're getting high five, virtual high fives. We have Athena Porter, another cervical cancer. How we word it is so important. Tierra Wade, yes, language matters. Carol Lacey, absolutely. How the vaccine is presented to parents is so important. Dr. Bob, I see you in here. Also, he said, I've encountered so many parents who still say, I am doing what's best for my child by not getting them vaccinated because the vaccine can harm them. These beliefs do make it difficult to get out the message that the vaccine is best for them to prevent cancer. Thank you all for chiming into this important conversations. And thank you to those who are watching the replay of this. We appreciate you also. So we've made progress towards educating that HPV vaccination is cancer prevention. And again, we've touched on this a little bit, but I think it's important to go to it. In your opinion, what can we do more to increase awareness and save more lives from cancer? And, you know, I'm going to say it like, this is the time to like, just put it out there. And you all tell us in the chat too. So this is for the panel, but you put it in the chat too. What is that thing that we need to do more of? And I mean, let's go big. No thing is too big or too small. What do we need to do? Anybody, just Susie, go.
I'm here. In my opinion, we need better marketing on TV. You need to put us type folks that have gone through this treatment to that person that walks in the doctor office and says it's too risky to put that vaccine in my child's arm. Put us on a commercial and talk about the barbaric treatment we just went through from, like Michael said, something we probably got exposed to 20 years earlier that we didn't have a vaccine around for. I think the world needs to see the survivors on commercials rather than, no offense to the current commercials that are out there that shows kids running with backpacks to school and they talk about an HPV vaccine. No, that message isn't clear.
No,
You
you're absolutely right. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I've been saying for years that we have a marketing issue with
Yeah,
this.
so
It's a marketing issue, and you don't see the devastation of cancer, so you
No.
think it won't happen to your
No.
little child.
No.
And so you're absolutely right. It is a marketing issue, and it looks like we're in agreement with everyone that is in the chat.
Sometimes I try to see if I can get into the radar organization. Can I get into the NFL organ? Can I get to where I was once platformed to show
You
we have
can.
a
Let's do
problem
it.
here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We-
let's do it.
We can make a
Lindsay,
difference,
Mike.
all of us with our voices. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the schools, because that's where it starts, especially because they can get it at age 9. It's very important for us to be able to talk. I agree, as far as us sharing our stories more and getting more, putting a face to it in our communities and letting people know it does happen to anyone. People that you think oh, that person doesn't look like me, so it can't happen. They absolutely can happen to us, and we definitely need to be telling our stories more.
And go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, the key is survivors, right? You get pushback sometimes, or providers do, or other organizations, for fear mongering and things like that. But I think when you have a survivor front and center, there's no other agenda that we have on our mind than trying to help other families to never, ever have to go through what we went through. I mean, there's just no other agenda. I mean, people can then do with that information what they want to do with it. But I think it comes from a pure, honest, humble place where you're simply just trying to serve others in the world by saying, hey, this is what happened to me. These are the things I did not know about. This is what I think you should know. So hopefully you or your loved one is never in that same situation. And there's so many opportunities out there to get into schools. I mean, schools are a little dicey. I live in California, but I can tell you that I've spoken in plenty of schools, mainly high schools, with the catch-up vaccine. And what I found is the nurses there are actually very, very supportive of the survivors coming in and speaking. And then so many kids came up afterwards. And then, at least in California, then the kids can go directly through the school nurse, and there's various ways they can get that vaccine. I'm sure some people would push back on that. But again, it's just about knowledge, and it's just about letting people know what's out there. Because once again, just as a human being, once you know that it could be death, or it could be a brutal journey that is going to, mentally, physically, and spiritually alter how you view life from then going forward. It's something that catches your attention. And I think there's no better group that can present that than survivors.
Amen. And it looks like from the chat, everyone agrees. I'm seeing from several people, the kids in backpack ads are dangerously misleading. People are skipping and with their backpacks and happy as can be. I think this is very important. And speaking of survivors, there is someone, and I can't find it right now. I believe they're celebrating 21 years cancer-free. So I want to take the time to congratulate you on 21, and I'm sorry I missed the name. It's because this chat is so engaging and I love it. I'm scrolling, but I don't see it. But congratulations to you and your 21 years cancer-free. So, a lot of people think that they see us like this, right? And so cancer wasn't that bad. I remember someone said that to me right when the HPV vaccine came out in 2006. Jill, thank you, Gabby. Jill, hello, thank you, and congrats on your 21 years, Jill Gasperick. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but congratulations. I remember that I was at work and I was covering something, and no one wanted me to ask this question. They knew how I felt about it, but they said, you're not here to cover that. And this was when there was a mandate for the HPV vaccine that was up for vote in Washington, D.C. And the person who was over the Health and Human Services committee at the time, she was the chair, I had to interview her. And I had promised my boss that I wasn't going to do anything controversial. Well, if you know me, I promised, but it didn't happen. That survivor in me came out. And I said, I'm a cervical cancer survivor. And she said, well, look at you. Look at you. You seem healthy. You seem happy. And I remember thinking she just did not get it because she couldn't see how cervical cancer had impacted me. She couldn't see the devastation that cervical cancer had done to my life because unlike some other cancers, you can't maybe visibly see what someone has gone through. Or because we survived it and we're seemingly putting the pieces back together again. And so when you can't visually tell your story from someone just looking at you, What's that one thing that you want them to know? For me, it's that cervical cancer has changed my life forever. I mean, I wouldn't be so dedicated to this cause if it wasn't. It's also knowing that people die from HPV related cancers. I think if you look at some of the commercials and everything else, you think no one dies from it. Sure, their health is impacted, but they don't die. And that was really an aha moment for me, that I didn't die, that I was still here. So I could tell my story and the stories of others. So how do you tell your stories beyond what people can physically see? Anyone?
Oh, if we keep in this circle that we've been going, I'm never the same. You know, I can be brutally honest with you. If I had to run from this phone and use that bathroom right now, I'm gone.
Same.
You know, I mean, the radiation and chemo saved my life, but the what it's done to my body has forever changed. Ask my husband.
Yeah.
You know, it's when your doctors look at you at the end and say you just went through one of the most barbaric 1970, you know, type cancer treatments out there. It's a real thing. So anything I ever put in my mouth, I have to figure out what it's going to do within a few hours later. And so when I went back to work, I'm an executive assistant for FICO. My oncologist said, Susie, just like you said to me, they're going to look at you and think you're okay. Do not turn that computer on till you know you're able to face the world, because they're not going to see you sick. And you might have beat cancer, but we're altered forever. Our lives are altered forever, without doubt. Without doubt.
I agree 100%. You know, I was pretty active on social media because family all over the country during my journey, and every single one of those pictures, when I look back at it, I'm smiling, but nobody could see the battle and the devastation going on in my mind. And that's what I really try to articulate. You know, we're kind of glossing over our journeys here just for time, but I'm sure if we all had more time and drilled down on it, at least for me, you know, you would hear that moment where this broke me. I mean, as a grown man who always, you know, never had crying as my emotional outlet, I cried. I remember crying in my mom's arms, begging her, somehow, please make this go away. Please make that pain stop. Because I couldn't foresee a future where I could ever feel happy again, and you know, want to get back to that life that I had. I just, it didn't seem humanly possible. And so I believe the mental component is a huge part of it. At the end of my journey, even though I'd never sought it before, I actually did go into counseling. Just to be able to process that, because to your point, you know, once people hear your PET scan results and that you're good, they say, okay, get back to life.
Exactly.
Well, how do you do that?
It's not that easy for us.
Yeah, and you see your family start to smile again, and they're starting to get back to their lives.
But our body is not smiling again yet.
Yeah, and you don't know what to say. I didn't want to bring them back into my hell, and so I found that I couldn't even speak to anyone, and so the mental part of it is huge as well. And so, I mean, yes, for communicating with other people who are going through the treatment, I think it's wonderful that they see us like this, because then they have that hope that even though I'm in my darkest moments, those people are happy and they went through exactly what I did. But it is difficult then when you have to shift that to a different audience and they're saying, oh, that's not so bad. That's when, again, survivors really have to tell their story and be vulnerable about it.
I love what Michelle Anderson says here. There has to be a deeper level of appreciation for life, things most take for granted. And I think that's so true. We have people sharing about, I show them my cane and how I'm now disabled from radiation. I keep showing them. Someone else, I lost the opportunity to have a family. Someone else, there's never a day that I don't have a symptom. There's never a day that I don't have a symptom.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same. Mentally, it's a turmoil. Literally, I never experienced anxiety before this. I feel the same way about Michael. I think I've always been a sap. I'll say that I've always been emotional. However, this is a new level of it, and I didn't really. I kind of suppressed everything, I think, because I just had tunnel vision, and I just wanted it to be over. And so I didn't really have time to process my emotions. And the first time I actually really processed all my emotions was at the first survivor thing that I attended, which was the Communities of Color retreat, where everybody understood exactly what it was that I was going through. And that's when I realized, like, I'm never going to be normal. That's never going to be my normal again. So, yeah.
And, you know, all of you have kind of mentioned, you know, family and friends, and some of you have touched on community. How important is it to find community for peers? I mean, for me, it's important. Obviously, I built a whole community because I didn't want to be the only person because I felt so alone. But how important is it to find a community where you don't have to explain it, they just get it?
It's very important.
Hmm.
I think it definitely saved my life, honestly.
Hmm.
It gets you to the other side. You know, I had
Yeah.
Marsha and Lillian that then opened up another group of men and women for me that said, we're going to get you to the other side. You don't even know what that means. And then you get to those last few weeks, you're like, oh dear God, you're not kidding. I do have to finish this. And then I still have to continue to burn for additional few weeks after. And we probably talk once or twice a week, me and the girls, you know, because we have forever symptoms, right? And where are you with this battle, or where were you? Or we get new girls that come into our world, unfortunately, that are just diagnosed, and we in the community, we get them to the other side. So you pay it forward. You never stop paying it forward.
Yeah.
I love that expression, get to the other side. That's beautiful. That's a cool way to look at it.
That's why we said it.
Yeah, for me, I started to get a victim mentality and feeling sorry for myself when it really hit. And, you know, even beautiful expressions that would come from people saying, oh, you're so strong and you got this. You know, in my mind, I'd say, yeah, well, you never had chemo. You never had radiation, strapped down to the table with a mask on your face like that. And you're kind of dismissive, right? And thank God, my wife realized that, and she put me in touch with someone who had gone through exactly what I went through. And that first call with him changed everything after I whined and complained. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. We'll talk about everything you said. I wrote it down. But before we do, what are the 5 things you're so thankful you have in your life right now in the middle of that storm? And it really did turn it around, right? The word appreciation is something that goes with us. But, you know, again, being connected with survivors, being connected to, you know, to someone who went through what you went through so that they understand and you don't have to fill in all the blanks. It really is powerful. And that's the one thing I really press when I'm privileged to speak in front of medical communities is I say, please don't forget the mental health part of it, because once we finish that treatment and all the medicine's done, this still has to heal. And there's just really nothing there where our current system helps you try to get back into life if you ever can live that, you know, new normal.
I still suffer if I go in just for my yearly pap smear, just to lay on the table and get in a position again that's
Traumatizing.
traumatizing.
Very
But-
traumatizing.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we just have a few minutes left for this panel. I mean, I could talk to you all for the rest of this day, and we'd probably be high-fiving and hooting and all that other stuff. You know, there's this quote that I use often from Dr. Heather Palmer. I know Morgan's in the chat, and I hope I get her name right. I think that's what it is. She said this thing when she presented to a group of us, and it was, cancer is a gift that's wrapped in barbed wire. So I wouldn't say cancer is a gift, but if it is a gift, it's a gift wrapped in barbed wire. Do you have any gifts, or what's one gift from cancer?
I would say it's appreciation. I mean, I'll never say that I'm thankful that I had cancer. I just can't do that.
Right.
But I am thankful that I had a challenge in my life that really brought me to my knees and forced me to look at how I was living, how I was appreciating or not appreciating. Like, so just I realized how small I was, how, you know, it just really put things back into perspective. And coming back from off of your knees and then getting the amazing opportunity to have a second chance to live your life. And I try to live my life better. I wake up every day and say, be better and appreciate, you know, what you have. That appreciation is what I hold on to. Some people say to me, like, why do you continually talk about your cancer? Yeah, I don't want to dwell on it, but I also don't want to forget it, because the farther I get away from that journey, the more I become human again. And I start to lose that appreciation. And so doing things like this is how I heal that dark chapter in my life, and also how I hold on to that quote unquote gift that journey gave me of appreciation.
Yeah, I would say, like you said, Michael, perspective, right? It's an instant perspective change in how you live the rest of your life. I know we bought a second house in Georgia, and we spend most of our time here now, and I've kind of slowed down in the world, right? And I just remember thinking, wow, God, you really threw a big obstacle at me. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna beat this. and then you're going to make me use a voice. And anal cancer, I remember when I first would tell folks, they said, oh, you have colon cancer. And I said, no, I have anal cancer. You can say the word, anal cancer is very stigma, right? And I had to teach people to be okay to like, you can say breast cancer and we're not really crossing barriers, but you say anal and it's like it's a little funky for folks. So I thought to myself, God, you're putting me in a big challenge with a heavy word in society. But you know what? I've got this, and I'm going to help make a difference because you've made me a steward to this for a reason. And I remember laying on the table during treatment every day, and I would say, God, if I'm supposed to go home, I'll go home. But if I'm going to live and make it, I have to be a reason of why you brought this in my life to make a difference to someone in the future. And at the end of my treatment, we had gone to Hawaii, and I was in a wheelchair because I still couldn't walk well. And I had my kids, my grown kids and grandkids, put a paper sack on the back of my wheelchair because I look too young to be in a wheelchair. I don't look ill. And I basically said to the whole island at that resort, please vaccinate your children. I have HPV anal cancer. And, you just try to make an impact and a difference where you can.
Yeah. Purpose. Absolute purpose.
And for me, I think I'm gonna really end with what Jen Konga wrote in the amazing Jen Konga wrote in the chat. Listening to you four is like sitting with a council of sages to guide us with your humanity. Thank you so much for educating, inspiring, and recentering us. Thank you, Jen, for that. I want to thank our amazing panel, Michael, Lindsay, and Susie for speaking with us today and inspiring the why behind every single thing that we do. Be good to yourselves, because when we share our stories, we're ripping that Band-Aid off again and again and again, sharing traumatic things that have happened to us. And so I want to honor that and thank you for ripping that Band-Aid off and helping us to reignite this fuel 10 years later. This is what we need so that we can keep going and doing this work. Thank the amazing survivors who are in the chat. You fuel us as well. And so thank you all so very, very much. You are the why behind the work that we do here at the Roundtable. You are the reason we celebrate. You are the reason why we innovate. And you are the reason why we'll continue to work so hard the next 10 years and beyond. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hand it over to Christina Turpin to wrap up our celebration today.
Great. Thank you, Tamika. I'm Tina Turpin. I'm a director with the ACS National HPV Vaccination Roundtable. And I first want to do a huge thank you to Tamika Felder for leading us through this journey today of HPV vaccination is cancer prevention. And then to our amazing survivor panel, Mike, Lindsay, and Susie for inspiring us for the work that we do every day. And lastly, for Dr. Sincamago for giving us that data of HPV-related cancers to kind of drive home the work we do and where to put our priorities. Next slide. I wanted to give a few resources for the after party today to continue your journey. It doesn't stop at the end of this webinar. Please check out our ACS Cancer Survivor and Caregiver resources as well on cancer.org, and the link should be in the chat. And then next slide. We also have over 90+ organizations that are members of the HPV Vaccination Roundtable. And so many of these organizations also have resources for survivors and caregivers of HPV-related cancers. So please visit our members page and you can be linked to these different organizations to also find resources. Next slide. All week long and all year long, we're constantly putting in resources, webinars, training, information that's incredibly helpful for those of us in this HPV vaccination space. So please join our social channels to be up to date with the information, and that is all in chat as well. And then next slide, our newsletter is probably one of the biggest beneficial resources you can get from us to stay in the know for webinars coming up, for new leadership announcements, for anything that could be helpful for your daily work. So please join that. It's on the bottom of every web page on our website that you can join. And I love to announce this great news. So I want to do a huge thank you to our leadership, our chairs for, I think it's like the past 3 or 4 years now, our Dr. Rebecca Perkins and Dr. Kristen Oliver. Huge thank you to their leadership that they've given us. And then a welcome to our new co-chairs, Tamika Felder and Dr. Michelle Fiskus, who will be on tomorrow to lead you through the session tomorrow. But thank you to that leadership. It's guiding the work that we do, and it's so impactful, as you saw today with Tamika's leadership on this call. Next slide. We do have an evaluation. You can take it here. You can scan the QR code. It is quick and easy, just to make sure that we are hitting the information you'd like to see and to get any information on anything we can do better. And I also wanted to do a huge thank you to the ACS team behind the scenes today to make this session happen. So thank you all. And next slide. I believe that's it. Yeah, join us tomorrow. We're continuing the party. You'll have more videos, more interviews, three incredible presentations that you'll see on here from the speakers. So join us tomorrow for new and emerging science in HPV vaccination. And I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone on the call today and watching this call and the recording. Because of you, we've had 10 wonderful years of the ACS National HPV Vaccination Roundtable. And because of you, we hope to have many more in this incredible work in saving lives from cancer. So thank you, everyone. Join us tomorrow.